Cool. So welcome. Found massive success and massive followings by leveraging content in a way that really provides a unique experience. They use it to sell, align, train, guide across the spectrum, right? There's often I often like to say that any curated experience, any designed experience can fundamentally be called content, right? All of that helps to shape the way that users engage with our brands. Um, so when we look at what we think of content going forward with using AI and at scale, there's a few simple concepts we want to talk about, which is going to change how content is used by organizations. And the one is designed for scale, right? We're no longer looking at a world where content is being created from asset to asset. We're creating content way ahead of plan and from a modular perspective in blocks, which we'll get to in a bit deeper in a little bit. We're structuring our content with intent, understanding journeys, understanding the logic, the triggers, and the rules, the moments, the opportunities to intercept users with the right messaging and the right content and the right formats. Right. And across from that, we're padding it with logic. If any of you are developers or have worked with developers, you'll understand the concept of using logic to build systems, right? That's cascade and systems that allow you to free you from having to monitor process every second of the day, right? And then, of course, like you said, trigger responsive. When a user or a customer does the right action, this is the piece of content they get. And the reason for that is that it provides them with really a tailored experience, a tailored journey that helps your brand stand out. It makes them feel special. Um, so what makes it an effective prompt? So a couple of small things here. Clear intent, right? We want to both give our AI systems, whatever system you're using, the right amount of guardrails. Where are they able to produce? What are they producing? Who is it for? Why are they doing it? Why do we need it, right? Then we go on to our brand alignment. What is our tone of our brand? How do we speak to our customers? How do we want them to feel at that moment? And how does that tone change depending on the moment we're interacting with them, right? The next is how do we define boundaries, right? We want to create boundaries that create something in English would say strategic ambiguity. What that means is that offering just enough guardrails, like a playground, which allows the AI system to leverage like LLM predictive capabilities to explore new avenues and often identify ideas and opportunities that we as people may not have the scope or the room to identify. And the next part of that, which we're going to get into in a big way, is our resources and references. That means developing the right content, resources, and maps that can be used to fuel AI, to teach it, to give it the parameters. Who are we as an organization? Who are we speaking to? Whether that's user types within a particular part of the journey, or we're talking to different levels of seniority across the organization, right? And of course, a strategic emphasis. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? And then I think one of the other big things that a lot of people don't necessarily do is give AI examples of what they don't want. So we'll get into a few more of those aspects just now. So one of the big things about the way I approach AI with content is almost treating it as an OS, an operating system, right? The content and the AI lands up becoming an interface between user behavior and our organizational goals, right? What response we want them to have. And the big idea here is ultimately to free ourselves to focus on more important things, to spend less time creating small pieces of content and be able to focus on the bigger picture and the scalability, right? Which happens through driving the right outcomes. So let's go to a couple of the core tenets of how to build AI systems, the AI content systems at scale. The first part of this is something I call modular messaging blocks. And we'll take a quick look to the left just to see what that really means. So when we talk about modular messaging blocks, when you're in your business or organization and you're developing your content strategy, one of the processes that many people haven't started doing yet and really need to sort of get on the bus is understanding that there's only so many pieces of content across a journey, right? As a user, as your range of users have their journey from point A to point Z, whether it's adoption, retention, expansion in the cycle or selling itself. What we want to do is take this as an example of an email that we have for an upcoming event, Elevate, and this is a good example of the way that we break something into modular blocks, right? Instead of content people creating new pieces and new assets for every moment and every project as it's needed, what we're able to do is go, okay, this is the journey, right, from start to finish. And within this journey, we have X, Y, Z piece of content. And we want that content to also change slightly. So what do? Let's take subject headlines. We're going to create a range of these lines, right? Let's take 10, 20, 30, whatever the case is, feed them into the system. We're going to then create another group of 10, 20, 30 of body texts, bullets. Who are these bullets for? They're for a particular ICP. Are they for seniors? Are they for executives? Are they for team level? Are they for managers? And depending on who it's for and where they are in the journey and what trigger that user does within the platform or within the life cycle, the system, the AI, the system that we're training, the scalable AI system, knows that these are the references, these are the references, these are what it's going to pull up, and this is what it's going to this is what it's going to adapt in order to engage with the right person the right way, right? So what we're doing is we're really using prompting and examples to train the system and to then push the right content to the right person at the right moment. So to go back, right, I'll share tone, voice, and intent logic. One of the big challenges for any organization is trying to build a content strategy at scale is trying to ensure that all of the various parts of the organization are speaking the same voice. What is the point of that? At the end of the day, it builds trust, it builds recognition, and it helps customers feel as in they're being noticed. They know what to expect from you, and when you meet those expectations, this is how long-term relationships are built. So another great thing is, like we said now, about modular content, templates, right? We want to train AI and train our systems using, like we said, modular blocks of pieces of content. And at the same time, we also want to create templates. What does a great email look like? What does a one-pager from our company look like? What does a social media post look like per platform? All of these things may vary, and by providing the system with a range of templates, it now has the ability to mix content blocks, user types, templates, and best practices to deliver excellent content. And then, of course, we have reuse rules across teams and formats, right? And that's the way that the system is going to use those different elements and push them out to the right time. The concept is to design once and then scale endlessly. So let's look at the 3 tenets of scalable content, right? Very much for a long time, content has been something that's been somewhat siloed, right? We have content, we have product, we have marketing, and content tends to serve all of these different avenues as needed. But when we start blending those 3 different parts of the departments or part of the organization together, this is when we're able to start having a far more effective AI-powered experience, right? How does content work with product to identify journeys, to identify users, and how does marketing work with both product and content to ensure that there's one seamless experience across the organization? So we're going to talk about a couple of small case studies. The first one is something we did in-house. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the content that we did, but one of the reasons that we know that it works so well, of course, from our own numbers, but is the fact that our users, and as much as you may go look for it, you'll probably never find it. And that is a pretty good sign for us. So we had a project recently where we had over 30 pages, complex pages with rich product information what needed to be developed in a uniform format. And we had about 2 weeks to do all of it, including feedback and development, which everyone knows can take a huge amount of time. We estimated this would take around 3 to 4 hours per page. And what we ended up doing was taking about 5 hours in total of prompting development, right? Building a good prompt with all the right nuance, detail, and information and templates, etc., that it needed. And then obviously iteration, which is a huge part of this. And we managed to cut that down, the of the total time for creation from creation to market to 30 to 40 minutes, which ultimately is an 86.7% faster time to launch. Looking at another good example of the case to why to use AI within your content strategy, to have a trained AI system that knows the nuances of users, journey, life cycle, and brand tone, right? Is that with the right CTAs that are precise per user, per moment, we've actually been able to see that there's as much as 161% boost in conversion rates, and that's a massive. I mean, anyone who's dealt with having to track conversions and having to track impact, deep impact, knows that that sort of number is something that it's very much worth the effort, right? And what we're looking about here is the scalability of AI also to in some cases almost you do its own simulations, right? When we go, hey, look, here's a moment. So-and-so user is in this particular stage of the life cycle, in this particular stage of the journey. And what we want them to do is move from X location to Y location, right? To convert them across the pipeline. And what this AI is able to do, once you give it the parameters and the freedom to understand how to do this, it's also able to then test very quickly, and then use that data to identify the right patterns, to deliver the right CTAs to the right users, to achieve the best results possible. And then another use case is something that I think is something that a lot of companies or organizations are not necessarily using. Wait,
Josh, we couldn't hear you, so just go back a sentence.
No problem. So we'll go from case 3 again. So we're saying that, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So we're saying that one of the other sides, which is a sort of a flip or a bit of a reversal of, we always think about AI as a tool for generation, right? Creating content. One of the things that many organizations haven't necessarily caught onto, and I think it's one of the game changers, to be honest, from my own experience, is companies that are training AI to provide their people with sanity checks. Before we go forward with the project, the system is able to ask our people the right questions. And that means having an AI system that is educated on your tone logic and, very importantly, your company OKRs. What are your ultimate goals of the company? What are you trying to achieve? And having an AI that's able to push back to you and say, hey, are you sure this is the right way to go? Have you considered this? Maybe this is something you've considered. Pushing blind spots and allowing us, because as human beings, we only have such a capacity to think in so much space, in so many directions. And having an AI system that's educated to your business or to your organizational needs, and then able to help guide people within your organization to produce better work faster and more efficiently. So when we're talking about developing our content in order to build sort of an AI-powered content design system within your organization, a lot of companies are still looking at content marketers, content specialists as people who sort of have a traditional writing role, which is very accurate. But in this day and age, it's sort of become very much more that content specialists are moving away from the traditional writing aspects and starting to move towards becoming language strategists, right? System architects. We're understanding how to interact with AI, how to train it, and how to ensure that it follows the right tones, the right voice structures, and how to ensure that as it scales, it keeps true to the rules and the parameters and the end goals that our organization are trying to achieve. So I'll sort of wrap up with I think something which is interesting for me, which is a little bit of a glimpse to how I see the future of content, and whether this is within a year or 2 years, it's hard to say, because it seems that AI and content are moving so fast at the moment. So right now where we are is in the realm of manual production, right? We're creating one asset at a time. And as things start to speed up, like I said, there's a big focus right now on producing more content faster, which still leans into the manual approach, right? And it's not, unfortunately, that's not scalable in the way that we want it to be if we want to be as competitive as possible. So the next step is to start developing structured systems. And the truth is that this is not a small task, but the way to start this, if you're looking to start developing a smart content system in your organization, is really to find use cases, identify 2 to 3 strong use cases. Start simple, identify the key contact points within that process, build those content pieces, break them into blocks, create variations, feed them to the AI, and start testing them to see how you can use the system. Because at the end of the day, if you're using AI, you also understand the more you're using it, the smarter it becomes, right? At the end of the day, LLMs are using pattern prediction to understand what they should put next, or to predict what they should put next, right? And the more that you engage with the system and the more it engages with your audience, the more accurate it's able to be, right? When it starts pushing out what it should come next. So the next big thing is AI integration. And one of the systems I'll tell you from our side is that we're actually building our own system using Monday. And one of the systems that we're doing at the moment is creating multiple boards with things like banks of CTAs, with over 100 CTAs for various moments, for various users, for various reasons. And being able to connect those different boards, connect those different resources, and then giving AI access to those boards, right, to provide them with an endless pool of resources that it can leverage in order to create highly impactful and effective copy that really moves the needle in the direction that you're trying to, and not just a case of where we are now of simply moving the needle, right? And this is where things get really interesting, is when we start moving into the future of predictive delivery. What does that really mean? It means that our systems within a platform, for example, will be able to predict based on your previous behaviors and both based on the typical behaviors of other users who have followed a similar path. It is able to predict and provide the ideal content through the ideal format at the ideal moment, right? And now we're talking about almost detaching writers from the actual content creation part and more of a back end management process. And of course, content is infrastructure, right? Sort of starting to use our blocks, starting to increase the level of precision that our AI system is able to do. And that's going to be a mix of finding the right ways to educate your tool, providing the right resources, letting it run through the system, through the trial and error, and really just becoming better and better as time moves forward. And that's it. Thank you very much. I hope you guys found that interesting. Happy to answer any questions if there are.
So Josh, hi. I think there's a few questions. Ruth is asking, do you have a special team of people dedicated to AI? What percentage of your team?
It's a very good question. So within our team, the way Monday works as well, we actually don't have a lot of content people across the entire organization. You might be surprised how few we have, but what we do is that for example, within our team, I'm the only sort of content focused person, but I work very closely with our product, and I work very closely with marketing, and we sort of share some of the roles. So sometimes there may be a bit of blurring, but I will say that if you do have more people to produce some of this content to help feed and educate the LLM that you're using, it will be a faster process, because there is some building blocks that it takes to build the sort of design system at scale.
Okay, thanks. Efrat is asking, can you share a specific example that we can use?
Example of what specifically, maybe?
Efrat, do you want to explain? I'll ask you to unmute.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Joshua. I'm thinking about just like the basic steps. So if I want to strengthen my startup brand, I want to create this content, and everything you say is like so smart, but I need like step 1, step 2, step 3, something that I can work with.
Like a document.
Like a document, or like kind of like a best practice, or even not that
Sure.
Something that you can give me as a handbook, and I can leverage from that.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'll be happy to share. I have some a previous deck which I'll be happy to give to Adva, and we can share it out. And it has some step-by-step guides on how to begin this process, on how to build your design system. I know that can be tricky from the beginning. It's actually one of the trickier parts, to be honest with you, is identifying the first steps that you can leverage in order to do this. But I'll be sure to share it with Adva, and then there'll be some steps there, and you're welcome to follow up on that with us.
Okay, are there any more questions? Okay, so Josh, thank you very much. And everybody, the recording will be available tomorrow at our website, startupforstartup.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.